Welcome to this meeting of the Cumberland Local Planning Panel. My name is Julie Walsh and I'm the chair of today's meeting. Also sitting on the panel today are to my left, Gabrielle Morrish, expert member, to my right, Brian Kirk, expert member, and to my far right, Bruce Simpson, community representative. There are no apologies today, and I'll just ask the other members whether there are any conflicts of interest to declare. There are no conflicts of interest to declare. The next item is the confirmation of minutes from the last meeting. I was present at that meeting, so I'll move that the minutes of the last meeting be adopted. Could I have a seconder? Thank you. Moved and carried. Before I commence the meeting, can I just check that everyone has their mobile phones turned off? Now I need to advise that the meeting is being live streamed, which is also being done to the council meetings. I can advise that the panel members inspected the sites of all of the items on the agenda today, this morning, to obtain an understanding of the circumstances of those sites, and we've all read the agenda. Now, I understand that nobody has registered to speak today. Can I just check from the gallery, is there anyone who hasn't registered who does wish to speak on an item? So I wonder if you two could just give your details to one of the council officers. So the procedure today, so I will hear from those speakers, will be that each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak. I will hear first from objectors and then from the applicant's representatives, and then questions may be asked by the panel members of those speakers. Following the public part of the meeting, we'll close the meeting and the panel will then move into closed session to consider the items. We'll consider all of the items together, there are 6 items, and then we'll open the meeting again to announce our decision. I can't tell you how long that will take. There's no obligation for anyone to stay to wait for that part of the meeting, and the minutes of the meeting will be placed on the council website as soon as possible after the end of the meeting. Are any of the speakers who wish to speak speaking in relation to the first item, 92 Sheffield Street, Auburn? Do you mind if I start? So as there are no speakers in relation to that matter, we will retire to consider our decision on that matter, along with the other matters, and as I've indicated, we'll then come back and announce our decision. So the second item is 206 to 208 Burnett Street, Mays Hill. Does anyone wish to speak on that item? Okay, so the panel will retire to consider its decision in relation to that matter along with the others, and we will then reconvene to announce our decision. The next item is 293 Marylands Road, Marylands. Is anyone you wish to speak in relation to that one? If you could come forward, microphone. And just let us know your name and address.
Yeah, sure. Jonathan Wood, 76B Great Western Highway, Parramatta. I'm the town planner on behalf of the applicant.
Oh, okay. So you've read the council officer's report,
Yes.
and that's one which had come to the panel, and the panel had made a decision, and the applicant basically doesn't like that.
Yeah, so we've prepared a Section 96 modification to amend the plans, mainly in relation to the basement, the ground floor configuration. The key issue last time was the panel basically resolved to delete a unit at the ground floor in proximity to the basement entry arrangement. We've fundamentally changed the way that unit's configured, and now that's back as part of this modification, as well as some other changes. So obviously I'm speaking against the recommendation, so we'd request that it obviously not be refused. So I'll run through it relatively quickly. It's relatively simple what the issues are in terms of the key issues. So just in terms of the procedure elements, so this was lodged, I think, in about September last year. We had it identified as being something that couldn't be supported in April of this year, and either told withdraw it or we'll refuse the application. So we weren't given an opportunity to amend the plans. Obviously, council's of a view that the issues couldn't be resolved, which we disagree with. So the two fundamental issues relate to that ground floor configuration and as well as the basement design. I'll talk mainly about the ground floor. In terms of the basement, I'm not a traffic engineer. We did have a traffic engineer who provided commentary on it to indicate it was reasonable. So I'll just touch on the ground floor. So the concern raised previously and the concern raised in this report relates to the amenity of that ground floor unit in terms of the proximity to the basement entry and in terms of the way it relates to the street, as well as the location of the bin storage, legibility of the entry, and the shared use of that lobby space for the residential and commercial elements. So just in relation to that ground floor unit, we did substantially change it. It's basically dropped by about 30 square metres. There was a portion at the rear that was changed from a bedroom to storage associated with the commercial component, focused on orienting it to the street rather than over the driveway configuration to try and limit the amenity impacts to that unit. I agree it's not an ideal position, but it's a fairly standard kind of layout configuration in the context of a residential flat building. There's often a unit in proximity to a driveway. It's hard to avoid. There's always a unit that has an impact from there. So just in relation to that matter, I've sort of touched on those elements and the way we've reconfigured that. So we request the panel consider that in their deliberations. In relation to the shared use of the lobby, it's not actually shared in terms of having a single entry and then you branch off. There's a clear commercial entry for visitors to the commercial space and a separate residential lobby. There's a connection from the commercial space to the lift lobby, the intention being that's for staff and for deliveries, and the intention would be that that's actually controlled via a key card configuration to get down to the basement. It's not anticipated that visitors to the commercial go through the residential lobby to then go into the commercial. So we think there's a reasonable separation there in terms of the way that's configured. In relation to the bin storage doors open out facing the street. There's some concerns about the amenity and the impact on the residents. We don't feel that's a fundamental concern. The waste storage configuration meets the council's waste requirements, and the waste officer has essentially said that they're in support of that configuration. The concern relates more to presumably odour to the development itself, which we don't believe is going to be a key issue, given it's separated from the lobby. It's not accessible from the lobby itself, so there won't really be any odour impacts from there. In terms of legibility of the entry, we've made some adjustments there to make it more legible for the actual residents. There's a feature wall that's got mailboxes integrated in proximity to the entry element. To the residential lobby. The doors are recessed on this revised design. There's capacity to pull those doors and the glazing back towards the street, so it's not looking quite as recessed as it is. We've got a huge amount of floor space up our sleeve, so there's no issue there. We just pushed it back to have a separate entry door to that ground floor unit off that entry arrangement. As I say, I won't touch too much on the traffic matters, other than to say that we had a traffic engineer essentially support the configuration without the two-way movement. The site's constrained, so we've got a traffic light system to a portion of the basement that's necessary essentially to get the the basement ramping and that sort of thing to work, as well as getting adequate car parking. There's also a concern about the separation between the visitor parking and the commercial parking. Visitor and commercial parking is on one level and the residential parking is on the level below, so they're segregated in some manner, and we don't believe that that's a fundamental sort of design or safety issue or any issue for someone to go somewhere that they're not supposed to, given we've got the residential floors below and there'll be no access there for visitors and commercial visitors to go to that location. So in essence, we'd be requesting that this item be deferred to allow us to provide some amended plans to deal with some of these issues. There was some commentary about a lack of an updated design verification statement, an error with a BASIC certificate, as well as some other minor detail matters. And we'd also like the opportunity to essentially work through the issues in a bit more detail in relation to those amenity concerns at the ground floor, because we think there is resolution, and we think a ground floor unit in that location is better than just deleting it and having a loading bay and a bin store, just in terms of trying to maintain some presentation to the street.
Thank you. If you could just wait there and
Sure.
I'll see if any of the other panel members have questions.
Thank you.
So we will retire to consider that matter and we'll come back to announce our decision at the conclusion. Next item is 327 Woodville Road, Guildford. I have Pauline Sassine who wishes to speak to that matter. Oh, so this is the 3-lot subdivision?
Yeah, that's correct.
Your name is Pauline Sassine, and where do you live?
42 Clarence Street, Guildford. So my property backs onto, adjoins that vacant block of land at the moment. So
what was the name of your street?
Cleone, Cleone Street, Guildford.
And you lodged a written submission?
Yes, I've lodged it. I'm actually the head petitioner for one of the letters that came through.
Right.
I've just seen this massive amount of information. So I haven't seen any of the amended plans that have gone through. So the original plans that I did receive indicated that there would be a subdivision for 3 separate blocks. And on those blocks, they would have a dual occupancy duplex, a childcare and a boarding facility. So a lot of my response is to counteract those types of sort of subdivisions for those types of premises to be built. I do have sort of I've written something here that I wanted to read through, but some of this might have now been addressed.
So just, if I could just stop you there. So this is the application for other uses is no longer part of the application. It's simply
just the subdivision of land.
So
okay.
If the subdivision application is approved, there will either need to be a development application for each of the lots for further uses,
yep.
or it may be that a complying development certificate might be able to issue.
Yeah, so that's where the problem lies. If you are to approve the subdivision of land, then we're going to have more issues coming through with like the development of having a duplex site built there, or a boarding house site, or a childcare facility. The street already is having a lot of problems with traffic and vehicles entering the street. We also have a lot of buildings that have gone up around Cleone Street with the approval of apartments and townhouses. There's been a lot more influx of cars and vehicles being introduced into Cleone Street. You guys will also remember that maybe a couple of years ago, it was approved to redesign the road. We redesigned the road for the pure fact that we didn't have any street parking for any of the residents. Now, along with that, we are seeing that there are granny flats being popping up in the backyards of many homes, and so those tenants need somewhere to park. They're parking in Cleone Street. Along with that, we have government housing at the bottom of our street that do not have on-site parking, so they need to park in the street. We also had a lot of affordable housing being built. So the townhouses that you guys approved years and years ago, the tenants are not using their garages. So where are they parking? They're parking on the street. So my concerns are that with the approval of a subdivision for 3 more houses or 3 more lots, within which possibly could introduce more tenants, more people, above the number of 10, would increase the amount of more cars to the street and more traffic flow into that. And that is a concern for safety for our residents. We have children that play on the street sometimes, that walk their dogs. There's people that park on the nature strips at the moment because there is no parking. So accessibility to people that are disabled or that have prams becomes limited. You guys can't always enforce or police our street and give out fines. And a lot of people do not take those fines seriously. So I'm here to present to you that there are more issues traffic-wise by the introduction of a subdivision, which would lead to a significant impact on the residents and the traffic sort of protocols that would be introduced into the street. You guys just spent over, I don't know, $3 million fixing our street. What kind of problems and sort of money are you guys going to have to put in if another 3 lots of land are put in behind us? We're already struggling with having people from across the road where there have been apartment houses being built parking in our street, from people that live in Constant Street where the street is actually very, very narrow and there is not enough parking for them, park in our street as well. And then people from Wynyard Street, which is the next street up, also have the same issues. So for us to say, to approve or to go ahead with a subdivision of more land will just increase the amount of people and the population density that is already, overwhelming to our street at the moment. So I just would like council to consider the implications that would have on approving a subdivision for 3 more lots. Because you also cannot guarantee what types of buildings or premises will be approved in the future, that also presents a problem for us tenants and our residents that are ratepayers and that expect the council to also look after them at the same time as, changing the landscape of our street. So I just really want council to really look into this and think about what kind of, impact you will be putting on our street if you do allow the subdivision to go ahead. And if you were a resident of Clean Street, would you be happy for that to proceed? And would you also be able to accept that there is no longer street parking for you or anyone else? The demographics of our street, as you would appreciate, is a high Middle Eastern population. And majority of those people that come from those families have more than 4 people living in their home. It's not a typical nuclear family anymore. It's a family that has more than three children. Majority of them are at driving license age, and then on top of that, their grandparents also live with them. In a culturally diverse situation like this, culturally they are, looking after their own families, and their families are quite large, and that means that there's more cars on the street. So I just put it to council, please consider this kind of impact on our street and any future sort of developments that might also impact our street. Thank you.
Okay, could you just wait there and I'll just see if any of the panel members have any questions for you? Did you have any?
To explain something, we have to deal with the application as it is before us today. I understand your concerns. You've explained those very well about traffic, generally relating to the future development of the site. We unfortunately can't sit here with a crystal ball and work out what's going to happen specifically on this site. Mm-hmm. So the application that we have before us today is to subdivide the land, and what happens next is something that may come within the control of the council if it's a further development application, or it could be a complying development application. The zoning on the land is R2 under the Parramatta Local Environmental Plan, which is for low density, low scale development. Now there's a range of things that are permitted within that zone, but unfortunately we're not able to
Make that decision.
and we can't, it's not within the power of the council or this panel to place restrictions that limit opportunities for future development under that zoning. We can't say that X, Y, Z is not permissible. We have to work within, we're bound, the LEP is a legislative document that binds the owner of the land, and it also binds the council and this panel. We have to work within that. So just explain that for you. So I understand your concerns. You've explained those extremely well, and I'd like to think that the council would certainly have regard to that in considering any future development application that might come before it on the property. But, and I'm not preempting the decision of this panel. I'm not saying that we support this application, but what we are doing today is considering the limits of this application. We can only deal with what we're asked to deal with today. Put that out for you.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm also saying that considering that it's already one block, that it remain one block, and that only one residential property is able to be put on there, or a commercial property, like it was for the last, I don't know, before that, 20 years before that, it used to be a petrol station, and so that limited the amount of, traffic that was in there, because people would go and come and go, and they weren't staying there overnight. They weren't parked there overnight. So my recommendation and my suggestion is to keep it as is, as one single block, and not to subdivide. Thank you.
Just thank you for explaining very clearly the local issues, which certainly the residents of Cumberland understand, and for making them very clear for that particular site, and particularly your response to Brian's comments explaining the concern about basically dividing it from one piece of land to 3 separate parcels of land. Did you, in addition to that, do you have any particular comments on that layout of three blocks? Like, is there another way of subdividing the land, or particular things about that layout, apart from the uncertainty of what that future development would be and what the form would be?
I think the layout, I don't know if this has been considered, but there is a sewage, do have a sewage pipe that runs from 42 and 44 across. And so we need to know whether or not that's going to be encased or moved for future plumbing or future sewage problems that might occur, and who would be the person that would take those costs in. So having buildings built straight across the sewage pipe would be definitely something to consider in that layout. Other than that, as long as the homes or the sites for future planning are not too close to the other homes and residents, then what else can I say? It's up to the council to make that decision whether or not it's going to be a successful future prospect or not. Other than that, it should be fine. It pretty much, I can't really argue with those plots of land. The size can differ or change, because the size is going to ultimately determine what kinds of properties or future projects they would put on those. So that it is an issue for us, but for us to argue with it, I don't know what else I can say.
And say, for example, with the battle axe allotment, is that unusual in the area, and does that involve any particular issues as opposed to the traditional sort of subdivision layout that's occurred in the area?
I think that there's not many battle axe properties around where I live, not that I've seen anyway. there are probably granny flats and things like that that might share that kind of combination or that plan. Majority of them, I don't know if they've been approved or not. So, like I said, a lot of those things are going to have an issue with, future planning prospects. So, yeah,
Thank you.
thanks.
So I have one more question. You mentioned there is a sewerage line servicing 42 and 44. Does that go through the subject site?
It goes through the bottom end, the northern end of that property. So it's the corner of Wolville Road and Clarence Street.
Okay, thank you. We'll look at that.
Thank you.
Okay. So we will retire to consider our decision in relation to that matter along with the other matters and announce our decision. So the next item is 54 to 56 Joseph Street, Lidcombe, and I understand that John Lee is here to speak in relation to that matter. Would you like to come forward to the microphone? So, Mr. Lee, your address is 22 Bates Street, Homebush.
Yes.
And so, did you lodge a submission in relation to the development application?
Yeah.
And do you own property nearby? Or? Sorry?
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry, you're
properly.
the owner. Sorry, you're the owner.
Yeah,
Yes.
John's the
Okay.
owner.
Yeah.
Sorry. So you have read the council officer's report,
What did you say?
Yes, he's
On
read
the
the council
application?
officer's report, yep.
and did you wish to address us on that,
So,
Or we-
설명해봐.
or would you like to speak instead?
hang on. So, yes, he'd like to address you.
Thank you.
I can speak very shortly because we are waiting for DA for nearly 3 years' time, include free DA. But we are very disappointed for last March resolution letter about setback, both street. But anyway, now is we work out with my architect or town planner. We resubmission for DA again, but I'm not sure this time you are approved or not. But my point, Joseph Street is zero setback in LEP. I heard from my architect, also my children find out. Even Armstrong, 3 meter setback, I think my opinion too much 3 meter. Because it's a backside, no development side, residential area, except the corner block already completion. But my opinion just to consider maybe minimum setback Armstrong Lane. I don't know, but we investigate apartment building in Lidcombe area, around 10 apartment building. Especially we check the setback. It's almost apartment building in Lidcombe area, no setback. Some is a little bit, but especially 1, 2, 3 Nicholas Street, the completion very recently. They haven't got zero setback both sides. I don't know how they got approved from council. This is my point. I'm not against for Cumberland Council, we applied the more nearly 2 years ago under Cumberland, no urban council. But Mr. Glenn here, we follow the council time plan and instruction all the time. We amending many times. We report more than 20 report and plus amend the report. Last year, 1st December, council asked us submit final plan. My architect prepared everything on the council town plan council instruction. After we submission, council said very satisfied. This is Mr. Glenn submitted DA panel, but I don't know, last March, we got resolution letter, was very panic. I don't know, but this time, this is my, just no complaint, just the story. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Just so you understand, we're an expert panel and a community member, so we don't have to follow the recommendation of the council staff. If you just wait there and see if any of the other members have any questions.
Thank you for presenting and explaining the background, and that will certainly help us in our consideration and evaluation of the recommendation that's been made in that report.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we will retire to consider this matter along with the other matters, and then we'll come back and announce our decision. There's no obligation for you to wait. I don't know how long it will take. We have 6 items that we have to go through, and the decision will be placed. Sorry, was there someone else who wanted to speak? Sorry, if you could just come forward to the microphone. Sorry, what was your name?
Yeah, I'm Ghazi Alali.
Oh, okay, so you're the architect?
And we have our town planner here, so I mean, it would be nice if he could just give a quick spiel about what was done.
Oh, okay, so the town planner would like to
Yeah,
speak?
please.
So, sorry, what's your name?
Yes, my name is Yusuf.
How do you spell that?
Yusuf, Y-O-U-S-E-F.
Mhm.
And
And your last name?
my last name is Taibeh. T-A-I-B-E-H.
Okay, and you're the applicant's town planner?
Yes,
Okay, you have 3 minutes.
yes,
Okay.
no problem. Now, just to explain what has been done and how we've done it, and okay, we had the resolution, which is mainly saying that the proposal is not complying with the FSR, and it proposes 2 ways to comply. Now, we've took these on board and tried to address them, and then we provided additional modifications that resulted in an FSR complying proposal. And additionally, we considered the context and what's the evolving future neighborhood character, and we tried to align our project with this context. So some of the items were not incorporated because they are seen as means to achieve the outcome, not an aims by themselves, but we provided alternatives that provided at the end an FSR complying proposal. Now, one of the items is having indirect sun to the habitable room windows, which comes from a design guidance in the ADG, and it's, as it's known, that item is for guidance. We try to provide a good outcome by rearranging some of the flats so that the habitable room windows will be habitable bedroom windows to be facing either of the streets, the lane or the street, but that was not done on all the floors. but the design have been changed considerably to address these issues. Now, these are really the main items. In summary of that, in our opinion, we see that this, and which also reflects what the council is seeing the proposal, and they are the people who know the area. They're saying that strict application of the requirements will result in a building that may not be aligned with the evolving character of the area. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. If you could just wait there, see if any panel members have any. Sorry, if you could just wait there. Just come back to the microphone.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Gabrielle has a question.
Hi, just looking at the plans, the amended plans that you've put in, it appears that the apartment designed to Armstrong Lane has relocated the bedrooms off the rear separation area. The ones on Joseph Street haven't done it. I just wondered why you didn't adopt the same layout as you've got to Armstrong Lane for the ones to Joseph Street.
1 second.
Because they're both 2-bedroom apartments. I'm looking at drawing, well, it's typical level 8-9, but I'm just wondering why, if it's been accomplished in some locations, you haven't used that apartment type elsewhere.
Yeah, so we're looking at 8 and 9, and why we didn't provided that on the other side.
Mm.
That one, it must link to what's happening on top and what's happening down. It's a different layout on all the floors that needs to be read vertically and horizontally, I believe. I'm not the architect, so I'm trying to understand the situation as well.
Well, your architect might want to answer it instead then. I don't mind who answers.
Sorry?
Look, in relation to what you're asking,
So before you start speaking, can I just get your full...
it's Ghazi, Ghazi. I'm sure you're going to have problems with my name too. The surname's Alali, A-L-A-L-I.
Thank you.
Look, I don't think, in relation to what you're asking, we've got a 13.5 metre setback. So, and both of those look at uninhabitable rooms at that point. So I'm not sure why we asked that question.
Well, I'm looking at your level 8 and 9, and you've got 801 and 802, which have a configuration. They seem to be exactly the same proportion as the building on the other side. And you've got both bedrooms facing towards the street. I'm just wondering why you didn't use the same layout on the other side.
I prefer not to do that. I think the layouts that we had on the Joseph Street side relate to that street in particular, and because we had to push that back the extra metre, we adopted it on Armstrong Lane but not on Joseph. That's why. But if you want us to adopt those ones onto Joseph, we could consider that. But I mean, at the moment, we prefer that layout on Joseph Street.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we will retire to consider our decision in relation to that matter and announce our decision. So the last item is 59 Kenyon Road, Marylands West. There are no speakers in relation to that matter. If that be the case, then we will retire to consider our decision in relation to that and announce it the others when we come back in to reopen the meeting. So that is the conclusion of the public meeting. As I say, I'm not sure how long we will take to consider our determinations. There are 6 matters and a number of issues to consider, so there's no obligation to wait, but if you want to wait, we will be announcing our decision.